Continuing from yesterday with 11:21, Uddhava Gita, and the translation of 11:21 again. Coming to this conclusion of all knowledge, one should give up the false conception of material variety that one imposes upon the soul, and thus cease one's material existence. The mind should be fixed on me, since I am all-pervading. Now, by analytical study, so the prior sections before this, 4.5 chapters, just a little review, was Gyan, either Gyan Yoga or Gyan Mishra Bhakti, and then moving towards Shuddha Bhakti. And one of the obstacles for Shuddha Bhakti is misidentifying the self as a product of the material energy, and thus a certain category within the material energy. We know this as upadi, or designation, but there's different ways of looking at that term, designation. Earlier in this same chapter, well, at the end of chapter 10, there was a question that led into chapter 11. Uddhava asked, I have heard that there are souls who are nitya baddha, and sometimes they can become nitya siddha. So how is that if nitya is nitya? How do you move from one situation to another if it's nitya? And Krishna's reply, paraphrasing, the question itself is misleading. Because when speaking about baddha or mukta, those are designations. They're designations imposed by Maya. Maya, little elaboration, Maya Shakti has subpotencies. One of them is vidya, and another is avidya. And if the Maya Shakti imposes avidya, then one is conditioned. If Maya Shakti imposes Vidya Shakti, then one is said to be liberated. But the soul is neither becoming liberated, or becoming conditioned, because the soul is pure like me. I'm not conditioned, and I'm not, becoming liberated. The soul is pure like me. So these are designations, and that feeds into what's here. So knowledge is to understand the distinction. One of the ways of describing what knowledge is. It's a distinction between matter and spirit. And spirit is pure. And stages of covering of the soul, that's a designation coming from Maya. Then he goes on, Krishna goes on to say, and I'm making it paraphrased and simple, there's also, besides Maya Shakti, there's the Antaranga Shakti, or my spiritual potency. That spiritual potency also has knowledge, naturally, as the soul naturally has knowledge. And that knowledge is to understand one's eternal relationship with Krishna. And then that's not Maya Shakti, that's internal potency Shakti, that kind of knowledge. So it's terminology or nomenclature that, at least in this section, it's not in every place, everywhere in the Vedas, that differentiation is going to be made. It's what's being made in this chapter. So to know who you really are requires connecting with the internal potency. To help us, become more connected with the internal potency, then Vidya Shakti from the Maya Shakti, the cultivation of knowledge to understand the distinction between matter and spirit, is helpful. But you're not there yet, even if you have that conceptual understanding of the distinction between the two. Because we'll all agree, answer a question in your Bhakti Shastri exam. Are you spirit soul, or are you a product of matter? Everyone's going to get that one right. And that's conceptual. And then the next one, what percentage of your day are you in that consciousness, that you're spirit soul, and you're living your life during that day in that consciousness? It's not going to be a high percentage. So there's Vidya Shakti and Avidya Shakti, and we mostly operate in the Avidya Shakti zone. Or even if there's some knowledge and there's some upliftment, some elevation, it's temporary because it's everything in Maya is temporary. It's not permanent. So where this discussion is going is when you actually understand who you are and you actually engage in service to Krishna, you actually engage not just externally, but actually dedicate oneself to service to Krishna. That's the internal potency. And by connecting with the internal potency, then the real knowledge is restored, and then one can know me and see me and understand me. So there's been this discussion, what if you're not there yet, like most of us? You're not there yet. You have the concept, but you're not there yet. So then Krishna describes in this, and we're going to read some more of it, to make the mind pure, something that is essential to make the mind pure, and it's the same things described in Bhagavad Gita, it's not a different idea. Detached work, offering the fruits of one's work to the Supreme, Karma Yoga. And second, hear about me, the Bhagavad Dharma method, and detached work. So that's appropriate for a lot of people. In the sixth chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it's Ashtanga Yoga to fix the mind, and detached work. They go together. You can't do Ashtanga Yoga properly if there's attachment to your work and being the enjoyer of the work. That karma thing has to be relieved by detached work. Aside from the time when you're meditating, what about the rest of the time? Detached work. When you're eating or anything, this thing or that thing, sleeping, talking. Detached work. It's foundational in the yoga system. So Krishna indicates that at a certain stage, when that cleansing has been sufficient, then one will manifest qualities of one who is in knowledge and detachment. And such a person doesn't need the varnashram duties anymore. They may do, but they don't need varnashram duties anymore because their consciousness is not obstructed by attachment. And then the mind can be fixed on Krishna. That's what this verse is saying. The mind should be fixed on me since I am all-pervading. I'll read the rest. Coming to this conclusion of all knowledge, so jnana vairagya, one should give up the false conception of the material variety that one imposes upon the soul. Not only, I'm black or white or this nationality, that nationality, and those kinds of upadhis, but all the range of upadhis, including vidya, avidya, becoming liberated, becoming conditioned. One should give up the false conceptions of material variety that one imposes upon the soul and thus cease one's material existence. What's ceasing of material existence? In Sanskrit, it's nirvana. Now, a bhakta, Krishna's espousing nirvana, but not the Buddhist kind of nirvana where you do nothing or become nothing, become void, but cessation of material existence. Say it in reverse. Material existence is resting upon making distinctions based upon the covering, based upon duality. I'm young, I'm old, I'm fat, I'm thin, I'm this, I'm that. Designations superimposed upon the soul. And when one has left that behind, that superimposition of duality behind, then there's the beginning stage of Shuddha Bhakti. And then Shuddha Bhakti matures, if one gets that far. And so he starts with a conception, which we have, and then continuous detached work, offering the results of work to Krishna, hearing about Krishna, these two things, Bhagavad Dharma, the mind becomes cleansed of Chindanti Kovidas Tasyat, Koyat Papasya Samshaya. The sword of knowledge cuts. And what's the knot? The knot of Prabhupada's translation, the knot of the internet. It's false ego binding us to that misconception. And knowledge can cut the knot. Now, bhakti can do an even better job and can cut the knot in such a way there's no knot anymore. It dissolves, not just is cut. But starting point is, because it's building, he's going to build in the course of Uddhava Gita on Shuddha Bhakti. So those of us that are, not where we're over here and the goal is over there and we'd like to get over there, or at least closer to over there, the goal. This is very helpful. Different things, different steps, and how it works, and so on. So that's the verse that we're reading from, 11:11:21. And yesterday we were reading commentaries where that verse, 11:11:21, was being referenced. Okay, here's Jiva Goswami from Bhakti Sandarbha. Bhakti Sandarbha, Anuchad 173. He makes a statement and asks a question. Quote, the differences between karma, gyan, and bhakti have been mentioned, but nitya and naimittika karmas are necessary for all these methods. Now, what's naimittika means? Occasional. There's duties that you always must do, and there's things that on certain occasions you do. Like, yesterday was Ekadasi, so we fast. That's a naimittika karma. It's a duty. And then there's nitya. So everyone has to do that. That's the beginning part. Is necessary for all of these methods. That's karma, gyan, and bhakti. If karma is mixed with gyan and bhakti, how can pure gyan or bhakti be performed? So there's the path of the jnani that likes, the impersonal goal. There's the path of bhakti that likes the personal goal. And how can they be performed? How can pure gyan or pure bhakti be performed if karma is in the mix, including nishkam karma? How does it work? Answer. Karma is rejected for both Gyan and Bhakti, referring to Uddhava Gita 1120.9. As long as one does not become detached from daily and periodic duties, daily, nitya, and periodic, naimittika, as long as one does not become detached from these two, or has not awakened his faith in hearing topics about me, one must perform one's prescribed duties of varnashram. So it's repeating the same idea from chapter 11. It's now in chapter 20, and it's the same idea. So varnashram, or prescribed duties without attachment, is necessary for everybody, unless one has come to a pure stage. And the pure stage is where, there's all these nice qualities of a pure devotee. There's qualities of a devotee, and there's qualities of a pure devotee. And the quality of the pure devotee, same as Bhagavad Gita chapter 6, where one no longer needs to perform duties. One may do duties, but when there's no longer need. But there's a need, one must perform until one has come to this pure bhakti stage. So it's because it's for purification. Say it reverse. As long as there's attachment to the temporary, you're not going to come to pure bhakti. You're not qualified for pure bhakti. And so, say it the other way. When one becomes detached from the temporary, then you're eligible for pure bhakti. And then the duty to render varnashram duties, etc., it's no longer an obligation. And you may do, just like Krishna says to Arjuna, no, great personalities like Janaka and this one, that one, they perform their duties, they don't have to. So Arjuna, you're going to have to too. If you become, you don't have the qualification now, so you have to do your duty. And when you do have the qualification, you do your duty because you're going to set an example for others, just like Janaka did. So you can't wiggle out of doing your duty, because that's what Arjuna wanted. I'm out of here. I'm going to the forest. This is not good. The commentary says, so that's 11:20, text 9. The commentary says, quote, karma means nitya and naimittika karmas, so daily and occasional. It is said, commentary says, whoever ignores Shruti and Smriti, thus disrespecting me, even if he is my devotee, is not a Vaishnav. And he because he breaks my order and hates me. Paragraph. This fault does not apply, since verse 9 of this is chapter 20, and I just read verse 9, since verse 9 gives a superior order, there's a stage where one need not, and otherwise one needs to perform varnashram duties. Rather, one will disobey the Lord's order if one who has developed detachment from karmas and faith in bhakti performs those karmas. So the operative is weaving around the significance of having faith in the process of hearing. And that faith in the process of hearing is described also in this chapter. It comes about yadrichchaya, which means there's no cause, it's causeless mercy of a devotee, and the devotee arouses that faith. If one doesn't have such association, there isn't going, supposing someone's a jnani, they don't have association of a bhakta. They can read and read and read, and it's not faith in this is going to take me to Krishna, it's something else. It's going to get me out of here. I want to merge with Brahman. But the faith where the object, the personality of Godhead Krishna, is to be pleased, and this is a method to get to that stage where my whole heart is for pleasing Krishna, having faith in that principle. That's the operative principle that gets one beyond the stage of having to do varnashram duties, in the very elevated, super elevated stage. One may still do. Janaka still did. He did, because he was not disrespectful to Krishna. But he didn't have an obligation. It was about his relationship with Krishna, not about getting somewhere, getting detached, or getting elevated, or getting something. Then another quote from 11.11.32. This is the pure devotee definition from Krishna to Uddhava. The question that Uddhava asked, that this is responsive to, Uddhava said, fantastic. It didn't say fantastic. Fantastic. If one is not yet purified, then one should offer their activities unto you and surrender the fruits of the activities to you. So what are activities that are eligible for being offered to you? And what are the qualities of those persons who have the eligibility, and those that reach that stage? What do they say? So this is responsive. This is Krishna's definition of not mixed, where there's some qualities, but pure. A person who, understanding good and bad aspects of Dharma, as taught by me, gives up all his duties and simply worships me, is the best of all. Though it's not exactly karma sannyas, but it's not exactly performance of karma either. So like King Janak, performance of duty, or Bhishma Dev, or anybody that's in the perfected soul. They do their duties. But they're not obliged to do those duties. They're doing those duties to teach others. And they're doing their duties because of their relationship with Krishna, not to get purified so they can have a relationship with Krishna. The consciousness behind is different. That's the best. That's the pure devotee. And then the qualities, the 28 qualities that were mentioned previously, they're fully manifest in that person. That's another symptom. Consistently, not sometimes. The commentary says, quote, he gives up duties because of strong bhakti by being qualified with detachment. This detachment is indicated by Kara Bhajana. Kara Bhajana is one of the Navayogendras. Kara Bhajana and the other 8 Yogendras visited King Nimi, and Nimi asked a bunch of questions, and Kara Bhajana is saying this celebrated verse, Devarshi Bhutapta Nirnam Pritrinam. The whole thing is here. 11.5.41. Oh, King Nimi, one who has given up all varnashram duties and has taken full shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, who offers shelter to all, is not a debtor to or servant of the devatas, great sages, ordinary living beings, relatives, or pitris. Conversely, one who has not taken full shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda has obligations. Rini is that has a debt. But those who have full shelter, they don't have debt. They don't have obligation. They may do. They may not do. And if they don't do, it's not a fault. They're not implicated in, bad karma. They do. Paragraph. The devotee is not a servant of the devatas or sages, but a servant of the Lord. Thus, he is not qualified for actions dedicated to them. He gives up duties, kirtam, or he gives up seeing differences, he does not see the devatas as independent. One of the offenses against the holy name. Thus it is said, from Garuda Purana, quote, as long as one does not worship Vishnu, one should offer respects to devatas, sages, Brahma, and Brihaspati. Then another quote from 11.5.42. This is the same Karabhajana to the king. It is not necessary for the devotee to perform atonements for sins, since the tendency for sin does not exist in the surrendered person. If a sin sometimes occurs, atonement for the sin occurs as a byproduct by remembering the Lord. That is mentioned in a later verse, 11.5.42, which reads, one who has thus given up all other engagements and, the Sanskrit, svapadamulam bhajatak priyasya. One who has thus given up all other engagements and has taken full shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord is very dear to the Lord. If such a surrendered soul accidentally commits some sinful activity, the Supreme Lord, great because of his affection for the devotee, seated within everyone's heart, immediately takes away the reaction of such sin. In reading this, I'm thinking of Muchukunda. Muchukunda, by hearing from Gargamuni about Krishna, telling Gargamuni the day is going to come when you're going to see him personally. So then he was eager to hear about Krishna. And by hearing about Krishna, his devotion for Krishna was nourished, and he lived his life in separation from Krishna, expecting one day I'll meet Krishna. When he met Krishna in that cave and he singed Kalyavana, and he saw this effulgent person in the cave, who are you? And Krishna said who he was. And I'm your worshipable deity, and I've come here because of your unalloyed devotion and your eagerness to see me, so I've come. And then Muchukunda, beautiful prayers, berating himself for having been materially attached king and this and that and the other, and not qualified, but still you're so merciful, you've come before me. And Krishna said, you please me very much. What would you like? Blank check. What would you like? Fill in the amount. And he said, I just want to be engaged in your service. Life after life. And then so Krishna responds, this relevant to this. Now Krishna at that point could have just relieved him. But Krishna said, while you are king, you were engaged in activities like hunting. And those activities like hunting, although it was your dharma, there's implication. So you're going to have to undergo some purification because of that karma. And then in your next life, you become a pure devotee and you'll come to me. So Muchukunda went off from the cave. He went to Badrikashram. This is now Padma Purana. And he engaged in purification. Now, Krishna can just wipe the slate clean. Krishna gave him some other assignment. Who knows why he gave him some other assignment for some other future service in his relationship with Muchukunda, whatever. We're not told what that reason was. But it's within the relationship between a fully surrendered soul and Krishna, that Krishna wipes the slate clean. One doesn't need to undergo atonement. Paragraph. This person, that's the fully surrendered person, has given up devotion to devatas, Chaitanya bhavasya. Surrender, or sharanai, means faith, since it is described that the person has given up karma. Faith means conviction in the meaning of the scripture. Scripture is a cause of fear for those who have not surrendered and causes no fear in the surrendered. It's true. One who has faith surrenders. It is not necessary to worship the devatas separately, since the Lord's worship satisfies everyone. This is stated in many places, but Bhagavatam 4:31-12. That is, the satisfying the root satisfies the branches and leaves. In giving up karmas, one should not feel that bhakti will be slowed by obstacles. The description of King Nriga was, he had faith, he wanted very much, he had faith in Krishna, he had desire to see Krishna. And he didn't have full faith. He thought, kind of like hedging, I'll put something over there in the, giving in charity to the Brahmanas, because that'll enhance my possibility of, and it wasn't, there's nothing wrong with giving charity to Brahmanas, but it was the hedging. It wasn't full faith. And so he had a problem. And the problem resulted in his becoming a lizard. But he then saw Krishna. So a pure devotee doesn't hedge. They may do duties. They may give in charity to Brahmanas. They may do so many things. But it's the consciousness behind it. That's the faith that's being spoken about. In giving up karmas, one should not feel that bhakti will be slowed by obstacles. So I have to get rid of some obstacles by doing some punya along with my bhakti. No, that's karma mishra bhakti. It's not shuddha bhakti. For it is said, Chaktvasa dharmam charanam bhujam harir, etc. 151. If a person, having given up his duties in varnashram, begins the worship of the Lord's lotus feet and happens to deviate or not reach perfection, there is no misfortune for him at all in the future. But what does the person who follows all duties of varnashram but does not worship the Lord? What does he gain? Bhagavad Gita says, Sarvadharmam parijajya. I will deliver you from all sins, do not worry. Gautamiya Tantra, quote, a person who thinks of Krishna's lotus feet at all times exclusively does not have to do japa, worship, meditation, or follow rules. Gautamiya Tantra. Bhagavad Gita 9:34. 9:34. The Lord teaches Ananya Bhakti with Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakto Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru. Concentrate your mind on me, be my devotee, worship me, and offer respects to me. Speaking of Bharata, Vishnu Purana says, O Lord of Sacrifice, O Govinda, O Madhava, O Ananta, O Keshava, O Krishna, O Vishnu, O Rishikesh, O Maitreya. He said nothing else, even in dreams. Bharata. Paragraph. He did nothing except utter the Lord's names. Thus he gave up all other actions with words. Though he may have done some karmas, they were performed along with the Lord's name. From this, it is understood that he had pure bhakti. It's really fascinating. Okay, Padma Purana. Quote, giving up all dharmas and simply chanting the Lord's name, the devotees easily attain the goal that those who follow dharma cannot achieve. Paragraph. One who has faith and is thus qualified for Ananya Bhakti is not qualified for karma. There's this interesting thing. What's good and bad? Did we discuss this yesterday? Whatever your position is, according to your position, you do that, that's good. Don't imitate somebody up here. That's not good. And somebody that's up here, they shouldn't do something down here. Whatever, so it's good to know what your situation is. And that's the standard of what's good and what's not good, given your situation. So you need to be a little conversant and guided. And then you do what's, so there's general standards in Scripture. So the qualification for Ananya Bhakti, the qualification of Bhakti, but even go further, Ananya Bhakti, undivided devotion, is this faith in hearing topics about Krishna. That person doesn't have the adhikar for doing the duties of one that doesn't have that faith. So we don't do karmas. We don't just throw them away either, but it's not an obligation to do them for the purpose of elevation and getting something, including elevation. We do them because it's for the pleasure of Krishna, like that. But how does that faith arise? Previously, surrender was taught as a sign of faith, accepting what is favorable and rejecting the unfavorable, as well as other qualities will be explained in the definition of surrender later. But even if humility and other factors of surrender are absent, there may still be signs of faith. The faith arises from Scripture. The lack of faith is supplied by the Lord. Ananyas chintayanto mam ye jana paryupasate, Bhagavad Gita. I carry the burden of supplying what is lacking and maintaining what they have for those who desire constant association with me and who, thinking only of me, worship only me. Paragraph. Moreover, he's like really thorough, isn't it? Moreover, the person with faith is not unsatisfied by hearing scriptural descriptions of bhakti's powers in the form of material life, such as objects, castes, qualities, and actions in relation to the Lord. He does not lose faith in the Lord by disbelieving scriptures which show bhakti's powers in material matters. For instance, it is said from Narada Purana, quote, it is said that the water from the Lord's feet protects one from untimely death, all illness, and all suffering. There's this terminology, I forget the Sanskrit. It's just an exaggeration. It's like it's an exaggeration. It's not, don't take it literally. I don't have faith in this. It's just, it's good for you. So to get you to do something that's good for you, it gives some exaggerated statement. I forget the Sanskrit term. So that's one who has faith doesn't have that idea. Some persons, though having faith, stop their progress by committing offense, thinking those results do not appear immediately. Paragraph. But persons who have faith in scriptural statements that say that one who remembers the Lord is purified internally and externally still have taken bath to purify themselves. One should act by respecting the conduct of past devotees like Narada and Vyas. To do otherwise will be offense. They have established rules in order to eradicate low tendencies in people. Paragraph. If one has developed faith, one continues to follow the line of acharyas, whether having attained perfection or not, just as a person desiring pure gold continues to purify it. Perfection, or siddhi here means manifestation of the Lord, producing the highest bliss, which destroys all faults, such as lust in the heart. And there should be no trace of actions influenced by greed, pride, or prestige in pursuing the accomplishment of that goal. It sounds like Madhurya Kandamani and, the causes of unsteadiness in bhakti. Tarangarangani, being the enjoyer of a little success in bhakti. They don't have that. Those who are, it's a mark or a characteristic of one who has surrendered. Until one has surrendered, that characteristic is going to show. Paragraph. Even more than that, the person with faith does not commit offenses like disrespect to great devotees knowingly, since that is contrary to the sadhana. Chitraketu's offense to Shiva arose from ignorance of Shiva's position caused by his devotional nature being covered by a whimsical action. Now, there's different ways of seeing what Chitraketu did, but this is one I've not heard before. He didn't actually understand Shiva's position because Shiva's position was covered from his vision. Anyway, there's different explanations. Though the person with faith may be repetitively attracted to material enjoyment because of prarabdha influences, bhakti is filled with humility or dainya and will progress by restricting the tendencies at the time of contacting the material objects. Bhakti is very powerful. And humility helps. It's an essential part of surrender. It's one of the 6 parts of surrender. 11:20:28. It's continuing in the same chapter. Uddhava Gita. Quote, with affection for me, with faith and determination, he will continue worshiping me, while at the same time partaking of those enjoyments which give rise to suffering, and yet condemning them. It's a very important verse. What to do when you're in the not there yet category, and you're doing sadhana, and some things have been cast to the side, and some things there's still some attraction. Whatever different spirit souls have as conditioning, some attraction for something that's in the temporary realm, and being the enjoyer or curiosity or whatever it is. They have faith in hearing. They have knowledge that says this is going to be detrimental for me. It's going to bring unhappiness, not happiness. But I don't have the strength and purity yet to let go of that. So such a person, having faith in hearing and chanting, continues with hearing and chanting and doing the service that they know is right, and with regret, continuing to indulge in, the temporary. Not sinful, but just, distraction kind of stuff. Very relevant instruction. 11:14:18, Krishna says, if my devotee has not fully conquered his senses, he may be harassed by material desires. But because of his generally strong bhakti, he will not be defeated by sense gratification. This is the stage, nishtha stage, nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya, prayeshu, almost destroyed. So there may be some residual, but when bhakti, that's attraction for the temporary. But when bhakti is strong, then the attraction may be there, but one doesn't indulge. That's 1st Canto, Chapter 2. The Ananya Bhakta. So this is a nice picture of that last section, text 32 from this 11:11:32. There's a whole description of qualities of the one that will manifest when one, in course of time, becomes devoted to Krishna, but still mixed. And then the unmixed. So the Ananya Bhakta who commits sin, in the verse Apichet Sudarachara, has faith.